Good morning. My talk is going to be a little bit different. I'm a composer of music and new professor of artistic research here. I take a somewhat different approach to this. Basically, I'm going to talk about how I use research as a tool for artistic work, and then how the artistic work sometimes influences scientific study of sound. But first, I thought that I would talk about one piece that has a relation to the research I'm going to talk about after this. This is a piece called The Return of Taki, the Last Feral Horse. And it uses different sorts of, I guess you can call it research, looking at bioacoustics of different animals, from mammals to small birds, or large birds, as in the case of the eagle, horse, deer, elk, reindeer, wolf, eagle, looking at their behaviors in the real world, territorial, grazing, herding, things of this nature, particularly of the feral horse, Taki. So feral means something that was once domesticated is now wild again. And this horse, Taki, was feared to have been extinct in the wild. It was reared again in captivity and then released into the Great Gobi Desert in Mongolia and also in parts of China. This piece also uses an ancient Mongolian poem, but primarily the singer doesn't really use text in this piece. Also doing research on the remnants of the Genghis Khan empire. This is his great-grandson, Hulagu Khan, in the 13th century. And also I'm doing research, very intense research into voice, brass, and winds, acoustics, multidimensional decoupling things that we can talk about if you wish. Also has to do with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I use that in Mongolia. This was performed in China by Load Bang, which is a group from New York City. So there's a lot that goes into most of my compositions, but I thought I would just present really three simple things and how they influenced. I'm not trying to make a direct metaphor. Some are closer than others. But basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the signals or the sounds of the wolf, the deer, and then of singing sand dunes. I don't know if you know about singing sand, but sand can sing. And so I have been influenced by these different phenomena in the pieces, and I thought I would play an example of the phenomena and then show how it might have an influence in the music. It's not to represent it necessarily, but okay, so the sound of the wolf we all know. Let's hope this works. Having some problems here with that. Okay, here's the wolf. Do we have sound? Okay, so that's the sound of the wolf that we all know. I don't know if I'm able to. Are you able to make the gain higher on the board? Okay. Okay, and here's an example of it in our influence of this in the music. Can you do it louder? And here's the score underneath. And I should say there's no processing of the sound at all. It's all live. There's no computers, no electronics or anything. And the next one is the roar of the Iberian red deer. And here we see an example of a nasal grunt at the beginning, followed by a modal phonation, which is kind of normal voice for a deer, followed by a chaos, and then going into, again, a mode change. It's kind of a normal voice, but at a higher mode, and then back into the chaos. And here's what that sounds like. And in particular, I really like that chaos, that very noisy sound. And I asked the singer to do something like that. He wasn't really quite able to reach what I wanted him to get with that. He wasn't able to quite get there, but okay, never mind. Here's an example. Louder. So that should be louder. Okie dokie. And then the next one are the shifting sands, and there's a lot on YouTube about these, and I also did a spectral analysis of one sample of the singing sand. But let me play you a fun video by a team of French researchers. It's kind of cute. Gesundheit. And we'll go to about here.
Il y a un son d'avalanche.
So that's singing sand.
Alors dans le sable qui chante, il y a deux seuils.
So there are two
seuil,
thresholds.
le sable qu'on pousse.
The amount of sand that's pushed. 4 fingers.
Ici ça sonne sans problème. 3 doigts.
3 fingers. About the same.
2 doigts.
2 fingers. Considerably less sound, huh? Much weaker.
1 doigt.
And 1 finger. Almost nothing.
Tout juste. Donc le seuil est entre 1 et 2 doigts.
And the next one
Il y a aussi un seuil en vitesse.
is speed.
Donc, si je vais trop lentement,
Too slow,
et
no
là, si
sound.
je passe juste le seuil.
A little bit stronger,
Si je vais plus vite,
stronger and higher,
c'est
even
un peu
stronger,
joli.
even higher, and again. And it's really fascinating because also it's not just somebody pushing the sound, but also the wind is able to produce it. And so different types of compositions of sand produce different sorts of singing sound. And it's really fascinating. But that's not really what this talk is about. So, but here's an example of the influence of singing sand. It's all the noise that we hear. Go a little bit higher. So it's all the noise in the signals. So instruments are doing things where they're playing and then making sounds with their faces or the voices at the same time while playing. And you can see the multidimensional network here where I have the main pitch and rhythm stave with other staves, 2 or 3 or 4 staves with different information that they're supposed to make sounds while they're playing at the same time. And I thought that I would play an excerpt, a 5-minute excerpt of the piece. Is that appropriate, do you think? Is it okay? Yeah? Okay. Here's a short excerpt of the piece. 3 excerpts, I think. Ah, good. Go higher. Okay. I think I'm going to stop it here, since that noise is really bothering me. I'm not sure what the problem is here. Okay, I'll continue. I'll just go on. So I'm involved with research into different elements of voice, linguistics, nonlinear dynamics of instruments and voices, course music theory, rhythmic complexity, multidimensional acoustical networks. And I thought that I would talk about one particular thing that was used in the piece, which is something we're calling M4. M3 is referred to as the whistle register, singing in the whistle register. Maybe some of you know that, the Pfeifstimme. But M4 is something that is a different sort of mode of singing. And it's even higher than the whistle register, which is M3. And so we're calling that the glottal whistle, or M4. And here we see the whistle register, which is basically the highest documented register. And we've actually have documents of it, and it's been published, that the M4 is a different and higher mode of singing. But let's go back to the M3. So the first two are the voices in the whistle register. So this is the a very famous example by Erna Sack, singing in the whistle register. Now that's the whistle register, M3. And the next one is the Guinness World Book record holder, Adam Lopez. He sang the pitch that's one key higher than the end of the piano. And this is the highest recorded note ever sung until today. And it's a little bit sharp. It's a little bit heavy, this sound. So
that's C sharp, and
yeah. So that was supposedly the highest note ever sung. And so in terms of hertz, that's 4,565 hertz, okay? So it's very high, huh? It's even higher than the piano. Now check this one out. If you think that was high, look at my sister. So in case your ears didn't tell you that this was higher, it indeed is higher. So this one here is 6,500 hertz, so almost 2,000 higher. Let me say this again. It's not even close. It's not in the same ballpark. In terms of sports, this one is much higher than this one. I'm not hearing any woof. So in terms of the piano, that's like a perfect fifth on the piano. So it's like a G sharp. Oh! Yeah. So, and this is Demetrio Stratos, who was in the 1970s and 80s a famous rock star from Italy. If any of you know the rock band, I just forgot the name. They were a fusion progressive rock band coming out of like the Yes Genesis mode, but more towards the jazz side. And he would break in a stadium full of 80,000 people. He would stop doing this progressive jazz, rock, whatever stuff, and he would do experimental voice things. Astonishing, this guy. So that's Demetrio Stratos at 6,500 hertz. So the question is, what the heck is going on here? And I did a study on the pitch profile, and we looked at 35 M4 samples. Most of them were 26 women, 7 men. Pitch profile, most were between 1 and 3 kilohertz. I'll go through this quickly because maybe that's a little bit boring. The highest fundamental tone, the highest FO, was produced by a male. The lowest FO in this register was produced by a female. We make no claim favoring one gender over the other or anything. These samples, 8, 14, 24, 39, are all higher than the highest note on the piano. And here's kind of a breakdown of the different distributions and related to the keyboard. the widest range, one singer had a range of 4,600 hertz. 4,600 hertz was the range of one singer. That's a lot. The narrowest one was 100 hertz. So quite a difference. I won't go through much of this. Here are the different reported transitions between the chest voice and the head voice, with the primo passaggio, or the secondo passaggio between M2 and the higher M2, and then a transition between M2 and M3. And then it's an open question whether or not we could actually consider there to be a transition between the M3 and the M4. This is an open question because is it using a different sort of way of oscillating? Because normally the vocal folds, when you sing, they close at the bottom, close medially and then superiorly, then they snap open. And they close and snap open, close and snap open, close and snap open. And one idea that we published about 17 years ago was that there's a vortex that's produced at the upper edges of the vocal folds to produce this whistle-like sound. Because if you think about your lips, right, it's a vortex that's producing this, right? You don't really have an oscillation. You have a disturbance of air. And is it proper or appropriate to say that the vocal folds are vibrating the whole time and maybe just vibrating at the upper edges when they go into the M4 region here? So we did a study where the singer, she transitions from normal voice, modal phonation, up into M4, and I'll let you listen to it and make your decisions. Actually, that's not scientific, but we have an idea, but we'll let you listen to it. What's this? And then? So just to your ears, is it a smooth transition or not? No, of course not, right? It breaks, yeah. All right. Now, a cool thing about the glottal whistle is not just its range, but it's what we can do with it musically. So here's an example of Anna Homler, who produces multiphonics with the glottal whistle. So we have one contour here that we're calling E, and another one that we call G here. So here's the E fundamental, and here's the second harmonic of that fundamental. But then we have a second tone in between that we're calling G. And so we have two tones here, then we have a third one entering here, and then here at the end we have a fry-like phonation that's added to this mix. So it's at least 3 components, if not 4, at the very end, and I'll let you listen to that. Okay, so that's Anna Homler. Now here's the guy that we heard before, Demetrios Stratos. And here we have, it's really like a 2-voice counterpoint for those of you who know music. So you have F, which is the lower voice, G, which is the higher voice, and you see that they have contrary motion at times, and sometimes oblique motion, like this one here. And here, G actually crosses F, and then crosses it again, and then a third time here. Okay? So it's pretty cool, and it's amazing that this is coming out of one face. There's one voice, okay? Can any of you do this? Oh, come on, Karin, I know you can do it. Oh. Okay, now, here's an important frame because it's this idea that the vocal folds are not oscillating but producing a vortex at the upper edges is called into question with this frame here. Because what we have is we have a normal tone here that's fairly high, maybe M3, maybe singing in the whistle register, and here's the second harmonic here. But wait a minute. we have something else happening here. And actually, you'll hear it, right? And this sounds to us like it's this M4 thing. And you can hear the difference here. So it's kind of rough, it's kind of noisy, and then they couple here at the end. So it's very cool. But this then calls into question the whole thing, because if she has an M3 tone, then that implies that there's some level of oscillation of the vocal folds. So how can you oscillate and not oscillate at the same time, right? It could be oscillating in the front, and it could be steady at the end, at the back end. So anterior, posterior, right? We don't know. But we have evidence that something else is happening here. Hear the noise? And then a couple at the end. And this is Angie, who was here last week for the interferal one. Okay. Okay, and then again, the glottal whistle can be produced ingressively with air going inwards or outwards. I'll do this quickly because I think we're running out of time. So that's on an inward breath, going inwards. This one's on an outward breath. You can hear it. Okay, so on and so forth. Now, shall I finish up by talking a little bit very quickly about the science? So basically, this is a plot of the signal-to-noise ratio and the SPL, the pressure. And basically, when we have a higher signal-to-noise ratio, then we have a greater degree of vocal fold contact. Low SNR, low degree, is a lack of vocal fold contact. And the greens and the reds are the whistle sounds, and you see that they're more or less congregated here, which implies less of vocal fold contact. This one obviously has more than the one at 0. So at 0 implies no vocal fold contact there. So M4 is mostly in that lower left quadrant, which supports the argument that it's non-oscillatory. We did a study at the UKM in Malaysia, and we had 2 singers go there, and we used high-speed endoscopy, also with EGG, which is a measure. So endoscopy is either through the mouth or through the nose, which is getting visual information about how the vocal folds oscillate. The EGG are 2 sensors placed on either side of the vocal folds, which measures the degree of closure and when. But it's not conclusive what we found. But we do have examples here. This is a sound spectrograph, and here is a normal tone, and here is the M4. And and so you see that there's a signal all the way through. And we won't look at the acoustics here, but what I want to focus on is here. This is the EGG signal. And at this point here, right when the glottal whistle begins, we see here at the bottom there's no oscillation of the vocal folds at this point. So with this particular example, this M4 was produced without oscillation. But we were this was in Malaysia, and the equipment, it was at a university, not a hospital, and the equipment wasn't really well maintained, so we had some problems with the technical aspects, and we couldn't actually publish this data yet. This is one of the projects that we'll try to do here. So oscillation or not, I'll just cut to the end. It seems that, yes, some M4 are using no oscillation, while some M4s seem to be using oscillation. So there seems to be a continuum of vocal fold behavior, and this is part of the study that we'll look at in the next years here, or at the hospitals in Lund. So thanks.